All right, so we're back and ready for another deep dive, and you guys are clearly obsessed with this Harry Potter reboot.
Yeah, let's
You
see it.
sent us a ton of articles. I mean, we've got casting rumors, we've got fan theories, we even have a little bit of legal drama. We're going
Wow.
to unpack it all.
It seems like we've got a lot to cover, so maybe the best way to kind of break it down would be to follow the timeline of the project itself.
Okay.
So, starting with the earliest whispers of a reboot,
Hmm.
and seeing how things evolve to where we are now.
Okay, that sounds like a plan. So let's kick things off with this 2023 article about a casting call for a Harry Potter TV series. And it mentions that the series was originally planned for Max, but it got shifted over to HBO.
Right, and I think that was a smart move on Warner Bros. Discovery's part.
Right.
Because streaming platforms are in such a fierce battle for content these days, not just subscribers. They need prestige content.
Right.
And putting Harry Potter on HBO gives it that instant credibility and could draw in a much wider audience.
Makes sense. This article also mentions Warner Bros. Discovery CEO David Zaslav seeing Harry Potter as a key franchise. Instead of just saying, oh, he sees it as a golden goose, what do you think the financial implications of that kind of strategy are?
It's all about creating an ecosystem. They're not just thinking about a TV series. They're thinking video games, merchandise, theme parks.
Oh, yeah.
The whole thing. So having a successful Harry Potter series on HBO, that reignites interest across all those platforms.
I see.
Which means, it could generate massive revenue for the studio.
It's like a ripple effect with the series at the epicenter. Now, digging a little deeper into this article, it also mentions a mix of British and American writers being considered, including Francesca Gardner from Succession.
Right.
That's quite a range.
Yeah, and Gardner's involvement is particularly interesting. Succession is known for its sharp dialogue and complex family dynamics, which could translate really well to the Harry Potter world.
Totally.
I'd be curious to see if she brings a more mature and nuanced perspective to the characters' relationships.
Yeah, I think so too. The article also mentions that the casting call was specifically for kids between 9 and 11 years old. It seems like they're starting from the very beginning of the books.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they handle the actors aging over what could be a very long run. Finding kids who can convincingly portray those characters at 11 and then again at 17,
Yeah,
gonna be a challenge.
that is a challenge.
Yeah.
Okay, so fast forward to December 2024, and we have an article confirming a 2026 release for the HBO series. Wow. It reiterates that it will be a faithful adaptation, with each season dedicated to one book.
Okay.
It also mentions the intention for an all-new cast and the production's commitment to diversity and inclusion.
Right, and I think that commitment to inclusivity is significant because the original films, they were criticized for their lack of diversity. So this is a chance to kind of rectify that and reimagine some of the iconic characters with actors from different backgrounds, which could be really cool.
Absolutely. Speaking of the original cast, this article mentions Daniel Radcliffe's take on the reboot. Supportive, but no cameos planned.
Right.
He wants the new team to have a clean slate. I think that's admirable.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It shows a lot of respect for the legacy that he helped create, while also acknowledging the need for a new generation to step into those roles.
Yeah, like passing the torch. Before we get into the fan reactions, let's talk about this article about the video game Harry Potter, Quidditch Champions, which actually launched in September 2024. It's important to remember that this is not connected to the HBO series, but it is still part of this larger strategy that we were just talking about.
Right, exactly. Quidditch Champions is a prime example of Warner Bros. Discovery kind of leveraging the Harry Potter IP, across these different platforms. And clearly it's working. The game has been a massive success. They even brought back Luke Youngblood to reprise his role as Lee Jordan from the films.
I love that. I noticed that the voice actors for Harry and Ron are new, but Hermione's is still a mystery. What's with all the secrecy?
Well, I mean, it's a classic marketing tactic to keep people guessing and generate buzz. They could be waiting to reveal a big-name actress, or maybe they're going for a complete unknown who can truly embody, Hermione's voice.
Well, whoever they cast has some big shoes to fill. Speaking of expectations, let's dive into some of these articles about fan reactions. It seems like there are mixed feelings about replacing the original cast.
Sure, and that's understandable. Those early films hold a special place in a lot of people's hearts. It's hard to imagine anyone else in those roles, but then again, there's also excitement about seeing new talent bring a fresh perspective.
One recurring concern that I saw is that the young actors might actually age out of their roles if filming takes too long between seasons.
Yeah, that's a very valid concern, especially considering how quickly kids grow up. HBO is going to need to strike a really delicate balance between maintaining a consistent look but also allowing those actors to age naturally.
Yeah, it's a tightrope walk. This article highlights another challenge, and that is the pressure on this new cast to make these roles their own, while still staying true to the characters fans adore.
It's a really tough balance to strike. They need to honor the source material while also bringing their own interpretations to the table.
Yeah.
And the casting is going to be crucial in determining whether they can pull it off.
Absolutely. And speaking of casting, let's talk about this rumor mill that has been churning. One article suggests Mark Rylance is being considered for Dumbledore.
Interesting.
Although it's not confirmed.
Right.
Like, what do you think about that?
I think Rylance is a phenomenal actor.
Oh, yeah.
He could bring gravitas and wisdom to the role.
Yeah.
He'd be a very different Dumbledore than Michael Gambon.
Right.
Potentially just as compelling.
Then there are fan suggestions that Cillian Murphy would make a great Voldemort. And even Ralph Fiennes, the original Voldemort, agrees.
Oh, wow. Yeah, Murphy's intensity and those piercing blue eyes, he would certainly make a formidable villain.
Totally.
Be interesting to see him bring his own interpretation to the role rather than trying to replicate Fiennes.
Yeah. Okay. Now, for a bit of a detour, let's unpack this article about Rupert Grint's tax evasion case. Apparently, he tried to use a loophole to classify his Harry Potter residuals as a capital asset instead of income, hoping to lower his tax burden.
I mean, this loophole, it's known as the Beatles Clause, and it was attempted by the Beatles back in the 1960s, and it failed miserably.
Yeah.
So it seems like Grint was hoping for a different outcome.
He was, but unfortunately for him, the judge ruled that the money came directly from his acting work, making it taxable income. He ended up with a hefty bill of $2.3 million.
Wow. I think this is just a reminder that even in the world of entertainment, taxes are unavoidable. And it also raises some questions about how child stars are prepared for the financial realities of their careers.
This article also mentions that residuals are ongoing payments that actors receive for their work. It's something that a lot of people might not really understand. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, basically it's like royalties. So every time a Harry Potter film airs on TV or it's streamed, the actors receive a small percentage of that revenue.
Oh, okay.
And it can add up to a significant amount, especially for a franchise as popular as Harry Potter.
It's safe to say that given this legal trouble, Grint is probably not going to be involved in the reboot.
Probably not, no. It's a shame, but understandable.
Yeah.
His absence will be felt, but it also kind of opens up the possibility for a fresh take on Ron Weasley.
We've covered a lot of ground already.
I know, right?
And it feels like we're just getting started.
This is only the beginning.
This is only the beginning. We've still got a lot more to unpack. From the behind-the-scenes details of the production to the ethical considerations surrounding J.K. Rowling's involvement. All that and more, right after a quick word from our sponsors. So before the break, we were talking about the challenges of recasting those iconic roles, especially with the possibility of actors aging out of their characters over time.
Right, and it's something that HBO executives have openly acknowledged, that they're facing a unique challenge in finding children who can not only convincingly portray 11 or 12-year-old wizards, but also have the maturity and stamina to handle a demanding production schedule.
That's a tall order for sure.
Yeah.
And then there's the added pressure of potentially, aging out of their roles if filming takes too long.
Exactly. Imagine the logistical headache if, say, the actor playing Harry suddenly has a growth spurt between seasons 2 and 3.
Oh my gosh.
They can't rush the production and compromise quality, but they also can't afford to have their actors looking like they're about to graduate Hogwarts by the time they reach the Triwizard Tournament.
Okay, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the creative team behind the series.
Okay.
This article from 2023 mentions a few of the writers who pitched their visions for the reboot.
Right.
Including Tom Moran from The Devil's Hour and Kathleen Jordan, who worked on Teenage Bounty Hunters.
Interesting.
Ultimately, they landed on Francesca Gardner.
Right. I think it's interesting to see the range of talent that they considered. Moran's experience with supernatural thrillers and Jordan's knack for teen dramas show they were exploring different directions before settling on Gardner.
Yeah, and Gardner's background is really impressive. She's worked on Succession, His Dark Materials, and even Killing Eve.
Wow.
It seems like they're aiming for a blend of sharp writing and visual spectacle.
Makes sense, given the source material.
Yeah, they're definitely not shying away from the visual aspects.
Yeah.
This article even mentions that Framestore, the VFX company behind the original films, is in talks to work on the series.
Oh, wow. That's a great sign.
Yeah, the visual effects in the Harry Potter films were groundbreaking at the time.
Totally.
But technology has advanced so much since then. What are some of the ways that the series could utilize those advancements?
I mean, we've come a long way from the days of rubber-faced house elves and CGI Fox the Phoenix.
Yeah.
With advancements in motion capture, virtual production, and photorealistic rendering, the series could create even more immersive and believable magical creatures and environments.
Oh my gosh. Imagine seeing a fully realized Quidditch match with like dynamic camera work and lifelike dragons, or a Dementor attack that's even more chilling than in the films.
Yeah, the possibilities are really exciting. They could even incorporate elements of augmented reality or interactive storytelling, blurring the lines between the fictional world and our own.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a topic we can't avoid, and that is J.K. Rowling's involvement in the series.
Yeah.
It's been a source of controversy and debate given her comments regarding transgender individuals.
Right. It's a really complex situation and one that HBO is navigating carefully. They've stated their commitment to creating an inclusive and welcoming environment on set, but Rowling's role as an executive producer undeniably casts a shadow over the project.
For sure. This article highlights how some fans have expressed discomfort with her involvement, and even some of the original Harry Potter actors like Daniel Radcliffe and Emma Watson have distanced themselves from her views.
Right, and I think it's important to acknowledge that Rowling's personal views don't necessarily reflect those of everyone involved in the production.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people are working hard to create a series that celebrates diversity and inclusivity regardless of Rowling's personal stance.
It's a reminder that art is often created in a context that's bigger than any one individual.
Yeah.
And for viewers, it raises questions about how to reconcile their love for a story with their discomfort with the creator's views.
It's a conversation worth having and one that each viewer will have to grapple with for themselves. It's also worth noting that Rowling's involvement is primarily on the creative side, ensuring that the series remains faithful to the source material. She's not directly involved in day-to-day production or casting.
Speaking of production, let's talk about the financial side of things.
Okay.
We know that Warner Bros. Discovery is investing heavily in this reboot.
Based on their statements, we can expect a budget that's on par with or even exceeds that of House of the Dragon, which reportedly cost close to $200 million per season.
Wow.
Yeah, they're clearly sparing no expense to make this series a flagship production.
And it makes sense considering they see Harry Potter as a cornerstone of their franchise strategy.
Right.
Zaslav has talked about the need to leverage their biggest intellectual property, and Harry Potter is arguably their crown jewel.
I mean, it's not just about the money, though. There's a legacy to uphold, a world to recreate, and characters to bring to life in a way that honors the books while also appealing to a modern audience.
It's a daunting task.
Right.
But with a talented team, a massive budget, and the enduring power of the Harry Potter story, there's a real chance they can pull it off.
It all comes down to execution, you know? They need to find the right balance between nostalgia and innovation faithfulness to the source material and creative reinvention. Only time will tell if they can strike that balance and create something truly magical.
We'll certainly be watching closely as the series develops. Now there's been a lot of talk about potential spin-offs and other Harry Potter-related projects in the works. What are some of the possibilities that you see?
Well, I mean, Warner Bros. Discovery has made it clear that they want to expand the wizarding world across multiple platforms.
Yeah.
They've even hinted at exploring stories that go beyond the core Harry Potter narrative. So imagine a series that delves into the founding of Hogwarts, or the rise of Voldemort, or even the adventures of Newt Scamander's descendants.
The possibilities are endless, with a potential 10-year run for the main series. There's plenty of time to explore those other corners of the wizarding world.
It's a testament to the richness of Rowling's creation that even after all these years, there are still so many stories to tell and characters to explore.
Speaking of exploring, let's circle back to that casting call from 2023 and the emphasis on diversity and inclusion.
Okay.
This article specifically mentions seeking actors from all backgrounds.
Right.
Which is a significant step forward from the original films.
I think the casting process is going to be fascinating to watch.
Totally.
Will they reimagine some of the iconic characters with actors from diverse backgrounds? Will they introduce new characters who reflect the diversity of the real world?
I'm particularly curious to see how they handle the casting of Hermione.
Right.
In the books, her race is never explicitly stated, which opens up a lot of possibilities.
Yeah, casting a Black or Asian actress as Hermione would be a really powerful statement and a chance to rectify the lack of representation in the original films. It would also send a message that the wizarding world is a place where anyone can belong, regardless of their background.
Absolutely. It's about time that the wizarding world reflected the richness and diversity of our own world.
It's not just about representation, though. It's about bringing new perspectives and experiences to the story, which can enrich the narrative and make it even more compelling.
Okay, now let's address the elephant in the room. Or rather, the absence of an elephant in the room.
Okay.
Rupert Grint, given his recent tax evasion case, it seems unlikely that he'll be involved in the reboot.
Yeah, his absence is understandable from a legal and PR standpoint, but it's still a bit of a shame, you know? A lot of fans would have loved to see him reprise his role as Ron, even if it was just for a cameo appearance.
There's something heartwarming about the idea of seeing the original trio back together.
Yeah.
Even if it's just for a brief moment.
It speaks to the power of nostalgia and the lasting impact that these characters have had on audiences worldwide.
It makes you wonder how the new cast will handle those comparisons.
Yeah.
They're stepping into some very big shoes.
It's a challenge that every actor in a reboot faces theirself. They need to pay homage to the original performances while also making the roles their own.
We've talked a lot about the challenges and expectations surrounding this reboot. But let's not forget about the potential rewards if they can pull it off. This series could be something truly special.
It has the potential to reintroduce the magic of Harry Potter to a whole new generation while also offering longtime fans a fresh perspective on a beloved story.
And who knows, maybe it'll even spark a resurgence of interest in reading the books. There's a whole generation of kids who have grown up with the films but haven't experienced the magic of reading the books for themselves.
That would be the ultimate success, to inspire a new generation of readers to fall in love with the world of Harry Potter just as we did all those years ago.
We've covered a lot of ground today, from casting rumors to behind-the-scenes details to the ethical considerations surrounding J.K. Rowling's involvement. But before we wrap things up, I want to touch on one final point. This article about the Quidditch Champions video game mentions that they brought back Luke Youngblood to voice Lee Jordan.
Right. It's a fun little detail that shows the level of care and attention they're putting into these projects. It's also a reminder that even though the reboot will feature an all-new cast, there's still a connection to the original films.
It's like a bridge between the old and the new, a way of honoring the past while looking ahead to the future. You know, it kind of feels like we've just scratched the surface of this whole Harry Potter reboot.
Yeah, I mean, we've covered a lot of ground, but there's still so much more that we could explore. I'm particularly interested in seeing how they actually approach the narrative aspects of the series.
Right, we know it's going to be a faithful adaptation.
Uh-huh.
But there's always room for creative interpretation, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the opportunities that you see for them expanding on the story or exploring themes that weren't fully developed in the films?
Well, I mean, with the television format, they have the luxury of time. So, you know, they could delve into storylines and characters that were only touched upon in the films. They could flesh out the world in more detail, maybe even introduce new elements.
Yeah, I would love to see them explore the political intricacies of the Ministry of Magic. I feel like the films just gave us a tiny glimpse into how that operates.
Right, exactly. I mean, there's a whole world of, you know, bureaucracy and corruption, power struggles that could be explored in depth.
Oh, totally. And imagine getting a deeper dive into the lives of ordinary witches and wizards outside of Hogwarts. I mean, we saw glimpses of places like Diagon Alley and Hogsmeade.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to everyday life.
Right.
In the wizarding world that could be explored.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
I'm also curious to see how they handle the darker aspects of the story, especially the later books. Like, they deal with some pretty heavy themes, you know, like loss and trauma, the corrupting influence of power. I'd love to see them really lean into those themes and kind of explore them with the nuance and complexity that they deserve.
Yeah, that would certainly elevate the series beyond just being, you know, a children's fantasy.
Right.
And it would make it something that, you know, adults could appreciate on a different level. Something that resonates with the challenges of real life.
Speaking of challenges,
yeah,
I feel like one of the biggest that they're going to face is capturing the essence of the books.
Right.
That sense of wonder and magic without relying too heavily on CGI and spectacle.
I know the films were visually stunning.
Oh, yeah.
But sometimes they sacrificed those subtler aspects of magic that made the book so captivating.
Right.
So I hope the series finds a way to balance, you know, the spectacle with a more grounded approach.
Totally. It's that everyday magic, the small wonders.
Exactly.
That really made the world come alive in the books.
It's those little details, you know, like a whispered spell or a flick of the wrist.
Yeah.
A sudden burst of color or light.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so we've talked a lot about the creative aspects of the series, but what about the business side of things? What are your predictions for the reboot's success?
Well, you know, it's hard to say for sure, but I'm cautiously optimistic. They have a lot of factors working in their favor. I mean, a beloved source material, a talented team, a massive budget, and a built-in fan base. I mean, people are eager for new content.
Oh, yeah.
But then again, there are also some challenges they need to overcome, like the shadow of Rowling's involvement and just the pressure to live up to the legacy of the films.
Yeah.
The expectations are astronomical. It's one of the most beloved franchises of all time.
Right.
And fans are fiercely protective of these characters and these stories. So if they don't get it right, the backlash could be intense.
So what does all of this mean for you, the listener? Why should you care about this Harry Potter reboot?
Well, for starters, I think it's a chance to revisit a world that holds a special place in many of our hearts. Even if you've read the books and watched the films a million times, the series offers a new perspective, like a deeper dive into the characters and stories that we love.
And for those of you who haven't experienced the magic of Harry Potter yet, this is your chance. This is the perfect opportunity to jump in.
Yeah, I think this has the potential to introduce a whole new generation to the wizarding world.
Totally. It's also kind of a fascinating case study in how franchises evolve.
Right.
And adapt over time. We're seeing how a story that began as a children's book has grown and transformed.
Exactly.
Reflecting changing cultural landscapes, embracing new storytelling mediums.
Yeah. It's a reminder that stories have the power to transcend generations.
Totally.
And connect us in ways that few other things can. They transport us to other worlds, introduce us to unforgettable characters, and I think ultimately they teach us valuable lessons about ourselves and the world around us.
So as we eagerly await more news and casting announcements, I think we're left with one final question for you guys to ponder. And that is, what are your expectations for this reboot? Do you think it can live up to the legacy of the films, or will it fall short? Will it be a triumphant return to the wizarding world, or will it kind of tarnish the magic? Only time will tell. But I think one thing is for sure, this journey is going to be unforgettable.
Absolutely.
And we'll be here to analyze every twist and turn along the way. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Harry Potter. Until next time, keep the magic alive.